Hello and welcome to week 4 of English 1302 Online. This week we are turning in our first research report, so I want to go over a few things just to make sure we are all on the same track. If you haven't yet completed your thesis statement and choice that was due last week, please be sure to do that as soon as possible. I did give feedback for those thesis statements. Make sure that you read the comments though, because just because you got 100 doesn't mean that your thesis statement was necessarily great. I gave everybody 100 who turned it in as a completion grade, but I did put comments on every single person's uh, work. So if you have any questions, please be sure to get with me this week and get that squared away because our first major paper is due this week. Also, if you have not yet finished the peer review, where you turn in your rough draft, whatever you have, and then review someone else's paper, please do so as soon as possible. It should still be open and available, but if you do not participate in the peer review, you will lose 20 points off of your main paper. So please be sure to do that. If you have any issues with participating in the peer review, please let me know as soon as possible and we'll see if we can work them out. But I expect everybody to turn in a rough draft and I expect everybody to review someone's paper. All right, so let's take a look at what we are doing this week. This week with our paper, we are using MLA format, and honestly, this should be a review of using the MLA format because you should have been doing that in 1301. I have lots of resources for you for MLA formatting. We're going to take a look at those in just a minute. I did want to talk specifically about the essay itself. So let's take a look at the assignment itself real quick. So down here we have the instructions and then we have a separate submission. So the instructions for it are here. They're in full. Here is the separate submission. The reason they are separate is because it is impossible for me to put all of the instructions for the paper in the submission link due to using Turnitin, and it won't let me. It doesn't have enough space. So we have the instructions separately. In any case, take a look at the instructions. Remember, your paper has to be at least 1,000 words. No fewer than 1,000 words. That's about 4.5 to 5 pages of work. I'm not so hung up on the word count as much as I am the quality of what you put in those words. So if you are worried about the word count, you're doing it wrong. Write your paper, and when you get to the end of it, then make sure you look at the word count. Then you worry about the word count and go back and see where you can add some description or maybe some explanation because that's usually the two things that are missing from a paper that doesn't have at least 1,000 words. This is a big enough subject that you should have plenty to write on. You can always take a look at your introductions and your conclusions. You can also take a look at your description of subject, which would be the second section after your introduction. So you have your introduction, your description of subject, then you're going to talk about the evidence that you are presenting in your thesis statement that proves your argument correct, right? Your answer to the question is your argument and then your conclusion, which wraps it all up. So make sure that you are using MLA formatting. Make sure that you have a works cited page and that you have the required sources for this paper. Because any of those are missing, it's also 20 points off automatically. So we don't want to do that. MLA formatting is easy and it is honestly the one thing that you can control in this paper. You have all the control over that. You decide whether or not you are properly formatting the paper. Uh, and you decide if you just not to use it. And if you decide not to use it, it's 20 points off. Works cited page. You must have a works cited page. If you have the required sources or any sources, you have to cite your sources. You have to put them on a works cited page. So you have to have a works cited page. Your required sources for this paper are at least 2 academic sources and the story that you are using in the paper. And remember, the citations for the stories are on the stories. in Blackboard. So the actual stories that we read have copies of those particular citations. I have both APA and MLA. For this paper, we are using MLA, so be sure to use the correct citation. Why do I have APA on there as well? Well, if for some reason you were to use APA for any of those stories, you would have it. Uh, that's just what it is. But I will show you that real quick on the actual assignment where we did the discussion questions, where you have the two assignments here, the lottery, the possibility of evil. If you take a look at the story, or actually the assignment, it's right down here at the bottom of the assignment. See, MLA works cited and APA references. So make sure that you are using this. Now, all you have to do is copy paste this. Let's say you're using possibility of evil. You copy paste this, and then you got to make sure that it's properly formatted for MLA, which everything here is properly formatted. It just has to be double spaced in your paper. So double check that. Again, this should all be a review of information that you learned in 1301, which you had to have for this class. So all the information I'm presenting is a review of that. All right, so back to the instructions. Remember, 1,000 words, you're choosing one of the prompts. Hopefully you're going to use the prompt that you wrote your thesis statement over with me. You can change your prompt. If you get to writing this and you feel like it's just not working out for you, you can change your prompt without checking with me, but make sure that you have the 3 pieces of evidence in your thesis statement and the real world evidence to tie it back. So when I say 3 pieces of evidence and 2 academic sources, I mean whatever the 3 reasons are that you are answering the question with, whether it's prompt 1 or prompt 2, you need to make sure that you have some real world data, real world evidence, real world research that supports your claim. So if you're talking about the possibility of evil and you say that um, in the possibility of evil, Jackson shows us that or warns us about the behaviors on social media, such as uh, commenting anonymously or being emboldened to say anything that we want, uh, or whatever other reason you use, you need to be able to go out into the real world and find academic sources that back up what you're saying. So if you're saying that commenting anonymously is bad and it leads to bad things, you need to be able to find that out in the real world. And when in the real world, I mean, for us, probably like the internet, but also the library databases. And those can be found at the Lee College Library. If you go here to our front page, uh, the Lee College front page, you can find the library right here. Excuse me. And there's all kinds of things you can use here to search on the library. Here is the main search, the everything search. So you would just type in your topic. Um, you can say something about maybe cyberbullying, sorry, and see what comes up. And this is where you're going to find good scholarly academic sources that have been vetted by other academics and basically tested out, peer reviewed, if you will, by academics who say, yes, this information is good, we can use it. Now, does that mean it's absolutely perfect? Of course not. There's always going to be something that possibly gets through. I'm sure you can find stories about that. However, this is information that is being basically they're gatekeeping this information for us to make sure that it remains mostly unbiased and mostly pure. Now, can it be used badly? Of course it can. But is there an agenda? Not really, other than the pure pursuit of knowledge and adding to the conversation scientifically, etc. Um, This makes this different from popular media sources like literally anything else you can get on the internet. Google Scholar is an exception. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, but any of your mainstream media is all popular media, all of it. Newspapers, magazines, TV channels, it doesn't matter. It's popular media. And what the difference is popular media is fueled by clicks and advertisement. The more you click on something, the more those ads are paying for that story. They're paying them because you clicked on the story. They're paying them if you click on their ad. They're paying them if you buy something from their ad. So just remember, if you can walk into the store and buy the magazine or the newspaper off the shelf, that is popular media. If you can get to the internet, get to it on the internet, uh, that is popular media. Even media with a paywall, such as the Wall Street Journal, is popular media. Because you might say, oh, but I can't read most of the stories in the Wall Street Journal or the New Yorker or the Atlantic without paying for a subscription. It's still popular media because even if you pay for a subscription, you're still going to be shown ads. And if you are shown ads, they're still making revenue off of your clicks. That is still popular media. They are still writing to an audience. They have an agenda. It's still popular media. So if you have a question about whether something is popular media or not, please let me know, because I'm happy to disabuse you of any idea of most of the things on the internet being uh, okay to use. Remember, never use Wikipedia. You never cite Wikipedia. You can use Wikipedia to go and find your resources, but you must cite those resources and not Wikipedia. There's a great video in our writing resources that talks about how to use Wikipedia properly. Um, so when you pull up an article here on the references page, this would be the article. Here are the authors. This tells you a little bit about it. It's peer reviewed, so that's very important to make sure you look for that. You can, it gives you an abstract of what the paper is, and this will be important when we do APA formatting. The abstract is a summary of what the paper is about. You can ask it to show more and get more of the abstract. Sometimes you can get all the information you need from just the abstract, but it's better to always take a look at the full text. Now, when you hit full text here, it will hopefully bring up the entire article. I think our library is being a little slow today. Nope. Yep, they're having technical difficulties. The ENGL databases. Well, that's not great. Well, if you click full text, let's see if the alternate links work. Let's just see. Sorry about this. Probably should have checked this before, but I've never really had this problem. Nope. Nope. Looks like the library is having some difficulties this morning. In any case, if you can get to the full text, this will give you the entire PDF of the article, and then you can download that PDF and save it, which I recommend if you're going to be using it for your paper. Now, the other super cool thing about using the library database for getting your information is this right here. You can save it under your own library information, although honestly, I would download the full text PDF and then email it to myself to make sure that I had it. Even if you don't use this article for your paper, if you find an article that you think might have good information for you to use in your paper, go ahead and download and email it to you. It's free. The library has already paid for access to these papers through your tuition. So go ahead and just download it. If you don't use it, delete it later. But at least you'll have it. You'll have the article. You'll have the information that so you can use it or not use it to write your paper. Because electronic hoarding is better than real life hoarding. But one of the cool features here, besides being able to save and share it, the best one is the cite it. So when you click cite it, it's going to give you your citation for your works cited or your references page right here. And all you have to do is figure out what kind of citation you want. Well, we're using MLA. So that would be Modern Language Association, MLA, ninth edition. So you click that and boom, it gives you your citation. Now, what you still have to do, you can copy the citation, copy, paste it however you like. You're going to paste it into your paper, but you still have to make sure that it is properly formatted. It is not properly formatted here. It's not in the right font. It is not using the hanging indent that MLA uses for works cited pages, and it's not double spaced. So those are the three things you need to make sure when you get to your MLA works cited page. But it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you right here with giving you your citation. The cool thing is when you do APA, they have that too. APA, American Psychological Association, 7th edition. That's what we'll be writing our next paper in. If you click that, it'll give you the same citation in APA format, which is just slightly different than MLA. So remember, it will give you your citation. You just have to format it, which is honestly the one thing you can control anyways. So there you go. This is what using the library databases is like. It gives you a lot of different options. You don't have to use the first one. It gives you summaries uh, or the abstracts, as we call them, and you can decide whether or not you think that the information in that article is going to be good. And sometimes this will pull up articles, sometimes it will pull up ebooks. When you do the everything, it just depends. Sometimes it'll pull up an actual physical copy of a book that's in the library, which of course you can use. Books are peer reviewed by the editors. If they're in the library, they are most likely not self-published. The only books you have to really look out for are self-published books because you and I, just like Wikipedia, we can go and change information on Wikipedia, which is why you can't just quote Wikipedia. You have to cite the sources that are used for the information in Wikipedia. But just like Wikipedia, you and I can self-publish a book through Amazon. We could write a book of nonsense and have it self-published as long as it follows the parameters of formatting. For Amazon, content doesn't really matter much. So again, anybody can publish an actual physical copy of a book. You have to be careful. The library, I believe, does not carry that many self-published books. Uh, if they do have any, they've usually been vetted by some kind of service or publisher. So there you go. That's why we get things from the library. That's why we pay money for the library. I would use this resource because you have paid for it. All right, so back to our document. Make sure you have two academic sources. Make sure you tie your evidence, your whole paper, everything back to whichever Jackson story or any of the stories that we're using. In this case, it's the Jackson stories. You need to tie it to one or both, and that has to be referenced in your paper as well. So either the lottery or the possibility of evil. Make sure you tie that back. Don't just cite them. You need to show where you're getting your evidence in the story in your paper. Okay? So when you relate the real world evidence to the story, make sure you're citing both your real world evidence and where you got it in the story. Um, let's see a couple other things before I go. Writing resources is up here. It has its own module. It's chock full of all kinds of information. We've got the link to the Lee College Learning Hub where you would find the tutors and also the writing center, I believe. We have the link to my magic thesis formula, which talks about how to write your thesis, which you should have gone over last week when you did your thesis. Remember, it's your thesis statement is never a question, it's always an answer to a question. And so your thesis statement should look something like the answer to the question is blank because of blank, blank, and blank. Now, obviously, you're going to rewrite that to your circumstance and your answer, but your thesis statement is an answer that has three pieces of evidence to back it up. You mention them in your thesis statement, and then you go in your paper and flesh out those answers with your evidence and talk about how it relates back and why it answers the question. So there's the thesis statement. There's some general writing help here about writing thesis statements, writing an introduction if you get stuck. the word graveyard, which we're going to go into in just a second, the some research writing guides and spelling and commas. There's all good information here. Again, all of this should be mostly review. This is our second writing course for college, possibly more if you're coming back, but technically this is the second writing course you're taking in college. Let's take a look at the word graveyard real quick. So, yes, is it a little comical? Sure, but it's meaningful. So these are words that I should not be seeing in your formal academic essays. Oftentimes, that's really should be a longer phrase. It should be often or many times, but oftentimes is not really a word, even if it's in the dictionary. Towards. There is no S on the end of toward. There's no S. We use this all the time. It is improper. It is wrong. I will mark it. It should be toward. Toward. No S. Nowadays. Nowadays is not a word. It's certainly not a word that should be in a formal academic essay. That is slang at best. So you should give a current date or a specific time frame. You should have Instead of saying nowadays, it should be today we use this, or in modern times we use this, or we used to use this, or since 1978 we have done this. Not nowadays. Kinda wanna should be kind of want to. It is not proper. That is absolute slang. Majority. This is a word many people use incorrectly. It should be a majority or the majority, but it is never majority. So if you said something like majority of Americans go to Walmart, that would be incorrect. But you could say a majority of Americans go to Walmart. You could possibly even say the majority of certain amount of people go to Walmart. But you cannot say majority all by itself. Must have, could have, would have should be must have, could have, would have. This is just flat out improper grammar. Back then, back in the day. Now, that is not incorrect as much as it is in a colloquialism. And it's just makes you a better writer if you, again, have a specific date in mind or a specific time frame. Like, since last Friday, we've been doing this. Or since 1950, this has been the case. But to say back then, back in the day, it's just not good. Not good academic grammar. Slang words. Don't use words like woke, shook, or any other casual language. No cap, it's bad. See what I did there? Yes, I'm sure you're all cringing. Okay, pick yourselves up off the floor. All right. A lot should be a space lot. Uh, Probably there's a better way to say whatever it is you're trying to say instead of using the word a lot, but I understand that sometimes that's what needs to be said. But make sure there's space. It's two words. And then finally, contractions. And this is one of my pet peeves. In a formal academic essay, you are trying to elevate your writing and you are trying to show that you are a better writer. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to not use contractions. We do use contractions all the time when we speak. It just makes for better communication when we can more easily and fasterly, that's not a word, when we can more easily I guess, communicate with each other. And so we use contractions all the time when we speak. We use it in casual writing, and you'll see it in creative writing. You'll see it a lot when you're writing about characters, where you should not see it as in academic essays like this, because you're trying to elevate, again, your writing, show that you are a better and credible writer. So you should not use contractions. So contractions like don't, won't, shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't, these sorts of things. I've, they've, are, not ours, but I've, they've, theirs, not theirs. Anything where you would use an apostrophe is a contraction and you want to stay away from it. Unless you are directly quoting somebody, in which case I'm here to tell you that in higher college courses, when you are writing a thesis or a dissertation, they will try everything in the book to get you to use something or a quote that does not have a contraction in it, just because it makes you a better writer. So, last but not least, if you use a contraction, the word don't counts for one word in your word count. However, do not counts as two words. I will leave it at that. So make sure that you take a look at the word graveyard. Make sure you understand that. If you have any questions, be sure to email me about that. Some final thoughts on writing your paper, do not use Grammarly. I will say that one more time. Do not use Grammarly. Do not use Grammarly to check your paper. Do not use ChatGPT to check your paper, or Gemini, or Grok, or literally any of the other Copilot. Do not use your email to check your paper. I've heard that one. That was a good one. That was just somebody trying to get me to believe that they weren't using AI on their paper. They absolutely were. Use the spell check that comes with Word, the grammar check that comes with Word. Don't use Copilot on Word. You can use the grammar and the spell checker that comes on Google. Do not use Gemini. If you have Grammarly installed on your browser as a like a tool and extension on Chrome, uninstall it or ignore it or make sure it is disabled, because if it comes up and asks you if you'd like to change your paper for whatever reason, it could possibly show up as AI. And I do have multiple AI checkers, not to mention the fact that I'm really good at spotting it, because I do read everything that you write and I know what level most people are supposed to be at. Of all the gifts I was given, I would rather been able to fly, but that's one of the gifts I was given. It's not a personal challenge, but it is a personal promise that if you use AI, you will have major points taken off, or you will fail the paper and possibly the course. So please do not use AI for this paper. In any other course, I would say it would be fine to use Grammarly to check your paper before you turn it in. But if you use it in this course to check it before you turn it in and change it, um, it's going to show up. And this is a writing course, it's an English course. If I can't see what you're actually doing, how can I properly grade where you're actually at? And if I pass you and you used Grammarly and you go on to another writing course or a higher level writing course and you can't do something and they tell you you can't use Grammarly, they're going to come back to me and go, you didn't teach them. It's going to reflect badly on me. Of course, by then I won't really care because I've gotten paid for the course anyways, but you still won't know how to do it and you won't know when the AI does it wrong for you. So please don't use AI. Just don't use it. It's not worth it. I promise you, you will have less points taken off for a wrong word or a wrong bit of grammar or even wrong punctuation or spelling than you would if you use AI. So, and if you think that you're going to find the AI that's going to wash it, if you pay for a service that says it's going to be undetectable, don't believe it. It's not true, because just like AI is getting better, being able to detect it is getting so much better. So please don't use it. It wastes my time, it wastes your time, possibly your money, and it's not going to be helpful. I cannot express to you guys. I would much rather see your thoughts. And I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a pain, and I know you're busy and you have a life, but you paid to take this course so that you could actually learn something. And if you don't think that's worth learning it on your own without Grammarly, I invite you to drop the course, because I can't teach you if that's what you really think. So work with me. Don't use Grammarly. Let's do this for you in your future. All right. Finally, if you are concerned about being flagged for AI use and you know that you don't use AI, you don't like using I have one more thing to show you. It's actually here in writing resources. We have MLA information. Now, this is important. There's the checklist. These are the things that you need to check your paper to make sure that you're doing correctly for MLA style. There is a section in our book, I believe it's chapter 22 in the book, if you still have access to it. You can check that out. It gives you all about MLA style. MLA style is literally all over the internet. That's the checklist that I've come up with. This is a video about formatting from, I believe, the University of Louisville. I like this one. There's lots of different ones on the internet. Make sure that you're using 9th edition. But this one's really good. It will walk you through it. It's indexed. It's actually a pretty nice video. So you can just go to what you need to look at, or you can watch the whole thing. It's up to you. Um, I have also provided for you a template. It is a Word doc template, but if you use this template, all you have to do is type in your information. It's pretty easy. So you're going to put your last name and the page number, which is already here on this one for you, your first name, your last name, my name, our class, which is actually not FXX, but and it's actually 1302. So it'd be English 1302, W01 or W02, just depends on what those digits are. You can find those on our Blackboard. Then the day, the format, usually I like the month, day, year format. I don't really care that much about the date, but this is definitely MLA. Your title, which is centered here, all you have to do is type the title there, and you start your paper here, and it's already formatted in double spaced and in Times New Roman. There's even a works cited page. And if you do this up here, just type in your last name, don't take off the page number. It'll automatically put your last name and the page number on every subsequent page. It'll be great, just like it's supposed to. Your works cited page is down here. That's the title. You're going to start your works cited page. If you use the template, you'll start it over here and put your entries there. You can copy paste them there from the library database, the citation generator, or from the story that I have. Or if you have a source that is not from the library or is from Google Scholar, which I told you I promised I would talk about, um, then you can put it there. And there are lots of different citation generators on the internet. You just need to make sure you're using the right one. Can you use that? Yes, you can. Do you need to be careful that it comes up AI? You probably do. However, I am telling you, you can use citation generators from the internet as long as they're correct. If it comes up AI and you used AI on your works cited, I'm not that flipped out about it because that's actually not your original work. That's actually you citing someone else's original work. So that's fine, but you cannot use it for the rest of your paper. And it will tell me where you use the AI at. So, but this is a template you can use. You can just download this and use it right in Google Docs or in your works or in Word. Now, that being said, I was going to tell you guys about why I'm talking about Google Docs at all. Honestly, I don't really care for Google Docs myself. I prefer Word. Um, and and I would prefer that you turn in your papers either in a Word document, DOCX, a DOCX file, that's a Word document file, or a PDF file. Those are your two options to turning it in. You can do either or. Uh, if you are worried that your paper is going to come up as AI, then there is one other thing that you can do. It's kind of a pain as far as I'm concerned, but it will cover you because it will record exactly what you're doing as you're doing it, and that is to write your paper in Google Docs. Um, so this video talks about how to set your paper up or how to write your paper in Google Docs. Um, I think there's one mistake on here about the date, so take that as you will. But it talks about how to write in Google Docs. It's also indexed and gives you a lot of good information. So be sure to look at this if you want some help with that. Now, why is writing your paper in Google Docs a good idea? Again, because it will trace every single step that you do, and it will show me how long it took you to write your paper and what you did to write it. And basically it's like having a dash cam. If you're worried about getting in trouble for a car accident and you have a dash cam and you have the footage and you can show you're going to show that, right? You're going to say, no, 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 I wasn't at fault. Here's my dash cam. It's kind of like that. Um, Me being able to see your history in Google Docs will help prove that you wrote your own paper. Now, there's one other step. Once you've written your paper in Google Docs, if I need to take a look at that history, you will have to make me an editor on your paper. That's pretty mild. I'm not going to change anything because that's not what I'm looking at. But if you're unwilling to do that, then I'm not sure what else to tell you because that's the only other thing that will be required is that you'd have to uh, make me an editor if it comes up. But if you're doing your own work, is most likely not going to come up as AI. Occasionally, I have a student who writes exceptionally well and writes by all of the rules, grammar and otherwise, and actually writes an almost perfect paper. It is possible. I've had it done in the past. And sometimes the service that we use will flag that as AI or the possibility of it being an AI because it was too good. That is actually a really great compliment to you as a writer. However, if you are concerned that that might be the case, my suggestion would be to write it in Google Docs because that way I can see what your process was. I have a few other things too in that in terms of that, but that's why we write in Google Docs. All right, last but not least, Google Scholar. My thoughts on Google Scholar. Actually, I mean, I will find the. I don't appear to have the. Well, it's not here. I do have. It was a really good video on. Maybe it's under research help. Yeah, here it is. It's under research help about using research for Wikipedia. I don't know if I have a video on using Google Scholar. I will see if I can find one. I'm sure there's probably one out there. However, Google Scholar is different from Google because when you go to Google Scholar, and let's just see if we can get there real quick, take a look at it. All right, so when you go to Google Scholar, you're going to put in, we'll just use the same prompt that we did before. You're going to put in your prompt and or your keywords, and it's going to pull up scholarly articles here as well. Now, the trick is that you may not be able to get to some of these articles, but it does have many of the same features that the library database does. So you might even be able to find different ones. Um, and if you find an article here that you can't actually get to, I think Google tries to make sure that these are free for you to use. If you can't really find an article here, chances are good you could possibly find it at the library with the help from the librarians. Let's see. So let's try to pull up this article, I guess. That's actually the. Well, here's all 10 versions of this article, apparently. So it's going to give you different ones. There we go. We'll just click on the very first one. So if it looks a lot like the database ones. So this is actually from a book, the Routledge International Handbook of Human Aggression. It gives you an abstract. Looks like it will let you take a look at maybe some of the chapters, maybe not. It says you don't have access to this currently. You can get access possibly again through the library. It gives you information if you can get the information that you need from the abstract. That's cool. I did see back on the front page that it has cite. So it will give you the citations, MLA, APA, right there, just like the library database. I just think you can get to more information from the library database, but this is also a good place to start and you can use it in a pinch. One thing I forgot to mention about our library is when you go back to Lee College. Actually, let me go here. One of the things about the library, besides the research tool, is you can usually chat with a librarian. As long as the library is open, you can usually chat with a librarian. Now, currently, when I'm making this, the library is not open, but there's the chat with Ben, the chat bot. I believe when there is a librarian there, they will actually answer that. Um, and the chat bot can help you out. It's a bot. So there's lots of different questions you can answer here. You can always call them. They are happy to help you. When they are open, there is also the chat with the librarian. It's very good to use. And they are very prompt. And honestly, that's what they live for. They live to help. people. They went and got a special master's degree just to be a librarian to help people. So please use them. Other than that, that's it. We are turning it in. I'm not going to have this lecture again for future papers. Uh, it'll be a lot less. It'll be more like this. Just make sure we turn in our paper this week. If you have any questions about your paper, please, please, please email me. I will be available. If you turned in your thesis statement late, I will be getting to those as soon as possible to try to help you with writing those. Um, Other than that, have a great week and let me know if you have any questions.